Welcome to the IoT Audit, the tools for planning successful Internet of Things deployment. This is Introductory Module 1. Let's get started. So what is the purpose of the IoT Audit? Well, the emergence of the Internet of Things is projected to become a key enabler of business success. As we'll see in a few slides, the market forecasts are immense in the billions or trillions of dollars of economic value add. So the question is, how can we cut through the hype and understand how IoT can address our key business challenges? The IoT Audit is a framework-based tool that's designed to identify your key IoT business drivers, help you to avoid expensive mistakes, and create your optimal IoT solution. You'll learn to leverage the process that other companies have used in their IoT deployments that are generating measurable benefits. And lastly, using the IoT Audit tools, you'll be able to create the optimal IoT solution for your business. Now, who uses the IoT Audit? Well, organizations around the world use the IoT Audit framework to plan successful Internet of Things deployments. Now, these organizations fall into two categories. The first is end-user organizations. These are companies, businesses, cities, universities, etc. that implement IoT capabilities to optimize their business performance in some key area, such as process enhancements, customer experience improvements, new business models, and realizing cost reductions. The second type of organization are those who build products and services and drive them to customers, such as original equipment manufacturers. Here, these groups are integrating IoT functions into their products to enhance their offerings. Now, the IoT framework actually helps this second group twice. First, it helps them create market-leading IoT offerings, but secondly, the IoT Audit can help them with their customers understand why their new IoT capabilities improve their customers' business plans and drive high ROI. Now, the emergence and impact of the Internet of Things is very important for your business, as market forecasts suggest that IoT could add trillions of dollars to the gross domestic product over the next 10 years to 2024. Companies are deploying IoT solutions that drive benefits in enhanced customer service, increased revenue, supply chain, and use of assets. But IoT is also being used to improve sustainability efforts in the areas of energy, water, and natural resources. Now, IoT is not new, as sensors and remote monitoring networks have been used for 30 years, but it's the emergence of new technologies, inexpensive sensors, ubiquitous wireless networks, cloud computing, new software applications, and BI are driving new business models with high ROI. For instance, Cisco has estimated the economic impact of what they call the Internet of Everything is forecast to grow by $19 trillion between 2014 and 2020. This 6-year growth exceeds the entire U.S. 2013 economy of $16.5 trillion. Now, there'll be billions of sensors sold that will generate over $1 trillion of economic impact on their own. Now, a more conservative Gartner estimate, shown in the pie chart, shows that every industry segment will be affected and is still an enormous $1.9 trillion opportunity. Now, if you take a look at the pinwheel chart and all the market segments represented to the right of the chart, you can probably see your business in and amongst those various market segments. Certainly, the Internet of Things truly does affect every industry. Now, this is another chart looking at the IoT and wearables market and shows the Internet of Things along with areas such as tablets, smartphones, PC wearables, and other connected devices. Our focus of the IoT Audit is really that large light blue area, which is the Internet of Things segment. We're going to be focusing on the billions of devices to be deployed here and how you can successfully optimize your business performance using IoT devices. This is an interesting slide from the Gartner Group. It's their hype cycle diagram. And here you can see it begins on the left with the innovation trigger. As new ideas start to come to the market, they enter then the peak of inflated expectations. And then as people really sort through, they enter a trough of disillusionment to then climb out into a slope of enlightenment and then ultimately a plateau of productivity where the products actually scale. You can see where Internet of Things is at the very peak of the hype cycle. So what this means is we have to be very careful. Everybody's talking about the IoT. Everybody's trying to sell products around it. Lots of folks have solutions in the IoT space. And what we really need to do is sort out the hype from the hope and really figure out how we can apply IoT to our business appropriately and see real tangible results. Let's take a look at what other companies are doing with the IoT. Harvard Business Review conducted a survey of 269 companies concerning their IoT plans, motivations, and results from their IoT deployments. The initial reasons for adopting IoT broke out as 51% looking for enhanced customer service, 44% increased revenue from services or products, 38% improved the use of assets in the field, 35% were acquiring more information for their big data efforts. And the respondents used IoT for asset tracking, security, energy data management, field force management, condition-based monitoring, and fleet management. You can see this HBR paper is referenced in the corner below, but it's also included in the IoT Audit coursework. Now, what did these companies find after their IoT implementation? Well, 62% found the IoT increased their customer responsiveness. 58% said it increased collaboration within the business. 54% credit IoT with increasing market insights, and 54% believe it increased employee productivity. I think there's a couple of interesting statistics there concerning the collaboration inside the business while improving employee productivity. Now, many of the respondents also said that the IoT had enabled them to change their organization's core strategy and their business model by offering new services. And I think this is a very key point. As you're looking at bringing IoT into your business, you're going to find that it may very much drive change in your business. That's a guaranteed. But also that it may drive brand new business models that don't exist today. As you roll out your IoT implementation, this will be one of the key areas that we'll focus on, ensuring that you get a business implementation and a new business model that has a high return on investment. There are other studies to show IoT business benefits as well. Companies that use data-driven decision-making have been demonstrated conclusively to increase company productivity 4 to 6%, which is certainly a significant amount if applied to a very large enterprise. Data-driven decision-making is also correlated with higher return on assets, return on equity, asset utilization, and market value. Now, these are very important financial metrics most businesses use to gauge their business success. And lastly here, another study suggested that companies with higher utilization of big data technologies, which is associated with IoT, showed 1 to 3% higher productivity than other average firms. So again, the use of IoT and big data techniques is very important to business success. Now, big data and IoT is vitally important to today's businesses. 88% of companies interviewed in an Accenture study said that big data analytics are in their company's top 3 priorities. That same study went on to talk about 73% of companies are already investing more than 20% of their overall technology budget on big data analytics, and more than 2 in 10 are investing more than 30%. 53% of the respondents said that big data is now a board-level initiative, and 84% of those surveyed indicated the use of big data analytics has, quote, the power to shift the competitive landscape for my industry within just the next year. So if you look at IoT as really a way to add to your overall data set for big data, the two are linked together and are very important for business success. It's topical, and it's very important to understand how you can best bring IoT into your organization and leverage it for your business success. Now, the IoT is not all upside. There are certainly concerns that go along with it. And the same companies we talked about in the HBR survey realized that the IoT benefits also had some significant concerns shown here on the slide. 46% said ensuring privacy and regulatory compliance was a key concern. 39% acquiring the needed skills to leverage IoT data, And this, of course, are the data sciences needed to really crunch the numbers in big data sets. 35% said managing the growing volumes of data, and 28% were concerned about securing IoT sensors and their data. So the IoT pros and cons need to be identified, quantified, and balanced out to determine the return on investment along with the risks. So what exactly is the status with the Internet of Things within the realm of new technologies? So as we begin to look at how all the pieces fit together in IoT, it's instructive first to look at all the various acronyms associated with the Internet of Things, sort of called the IO what? First off, the Internet of Things is the interconnection of uniquely identifiable embedded computing devices connected with an Internet infrastructure. Now, M2M is often associated with IoT, and it's the machine-to-machine technology that allow both wireless and/or wireless systems to communicate with other devices for monitoring, control, and telematics functions. The IoT, or Industrial IoT, describes a robust IoT implementation for demanding environments. And these are the kinds of worlds that General Electric and Schneider Electric and Emerson and others participate in. IoP stands for the Internet of People. This is where we're connecting personal data to the Internet for health, safety, convenience, and well-being. And then if we combine the IoT and IoP together, we get the IoE, or Internet of Everything, popularized by Cisco. This combines people, things, data, and process to turn information into intelligent actions. Now, the diagram on this page is fairly simple. It's a conceptual diagram of the IoT, but there's some important concepts here I wanted to highlight. The first is you can see various different types of sensors across the top. Might be sensors body-worn for health information, might be sensors on objects, and there might be sensors in the environment measuring things like temperature or security status. And that data then is forwarded into the cloud or other means to be able to be analyzed and made sense of at a user level. But as you can see on the top there, the sensors are basically creating what is called infrastructure data, and the information gathered and analyzed is called operational intelligence. Now, these two concepts we'll talk a lot about in the IoT audit, and it is very important components of IoT. You've got your sensors that monitor the data. That data is forwarded for collection and analysis, and then you have diagnosis and actions. Now, this slide here is a more complex view of essentially what we looked at on the last slide. But I first wanted to start across the bottom there in the relationship of the devices from left to right. We're going to have sensors placed on various objects and in the environment. They're going to forward their data to gateways, and the gateways then are going to be collected, aggregate the data, send it up through networks. The networks are typically connected to a cloud resource where application software is going to provide data abstraction and security along with data storage, and these applications are going to perform the analysis of the data that the users can use to make decisions. And if you go around this slide, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, we'll go counterclockwise, you've got automotive and smart traffic applications. You've got consumer applications in either maybe hospital settings or in the home. In the middle there, we've got smart grid and smart energy. Over to the right, we have smart factories. And then above, we have enterprise applications where the sensors might be used for building controls and security. You can see they're all connected through a network back to the cloud where the big data resources sit for analysis. Now, this is a third way to look at the Internet of Things, and this reference model is what we use in the IoT audit to walk you through all the different pieces of what you'll need to do to put together a successful IoT deployment. You can see down in the first layer, that's the physical sensors and controllers, basically the things of IoT. Next, you have the gateway and edge computing layer. This is where the data is aggregated and forwarded to the network. These devices connect either wired or wirelessly to the network. We're also starting to see a trend towards edge computing at this layer, where some analysis is done on the data locally versus forwarding unneeded data up to the cloud. Then you have your network connectivity. This again might be wired, as an internal enterprise network or using wireless connectivity, up to the cloud, where the first layer is the data abstraction layer. This is where you've got security, you've got data abstraction capabilities to sort and file data that again gets stored in the cloud. Also often running on the cloud are the business applications. This is the analytics, the reporting and control software that again may run in a cloud or might run on your enterprise. And lastly, layer 7, we have optimized performance, which is where you're going to act on the data and actually improve your business. We're going to take a look at your key performance indicators, how we're going to improve those. And this is where the action happens out of IoT to drive your business success. Now, we looked at this pie chart slide a little earlier about how vast the opportunity for IoT is in terms of economic value add. And there are really tremendous opportunities for both end users as well as original equipment manufacturers or OEMs to derive substantial value from IoT deployments. As we looked at earlier, it'll take place in every industry and it will affect yours. So the question is, how do you capture your share of this pie? So how are you going to get your share of that pie or get that pot of gold? Well, the Internet of Things sensors are essentially a way to get at the infrastructure data we looked at earlier, which is typically inaccessible previously. This Internet of Things sensor data is analyzed with other existing data sources to provide new operational intelligence to solve your business problems. Large IoT deployments will create big data sets that are too large for traditional data processing systems and require new processing technologies. And developing the ability to extract useful knowledge from this data needs to be considered a key corporate strategic asset that is going to drive your business performance. Now, there are definitely frustrations with the Internet of Things. There's so much hype. What is real and what is true? There are so many wild prognostications and forecasts with really large numbers. Are they real or not? There's so many new technologies, protocols, and architectures. There's a lot of vendors just doing a piece of the IoT solutions, which drives a lot of integration and deployment hurdles if you're going to try and do it yourself. There's still an unclear return on investment economics. And, your company may struggle with the introduction of IoT because it requires changes in your operational processes, new equipment, new data analysis, new skills, and potentially new business processes or business models. And lastly, what process and tools do I use to make good decisions about my IoT deployment? So in recognition of these frustrations and issues, the IoT audit was designed to help you answer the following questions. First off, which areas of my business performance do I want to optimize? The toolkit helps you walk through that. How can I leverage the Internet of Things for my company and see a good return on investment? Which type of sensors, networks, and software do I need? What process and tools can I use to make these IoT decisions? What do I really need to know? And what mistakes must I avoid? 7. How do I calculate the return on investment for my IoT deployment? 8. If I wait on IoT, what are the implications for my business? Because I'll tell you, your competition is looking hard at this right now. And number 9, how do I leverage IoT information to create the actions that will improve my target business performance optimization areas? So who's going to find value in the IoT Audit Toolkit? Well, the Harvard Business Review study we looked at suggests the top 3 influencers that impact the success of an IoT deployment are 59% the senior management, 51% the business units and their leadership, and 44% for IT. Now you can see these numbers are very high for all these categories, which infers that senior leaders are going to need to work together to create an IoT deployment. So the senior leaders across all various organizations, whether it's product development, sales, marketing, customer service, operations, must understand IoT fundamentals and the strategic importance of IoT in their business plans. And lastly, a progressive IoT organization looking to enable their business units by bringing IoT into their big data analysis initiatives. Now, to get everyone on the same page, you need a strong framework. And shown on this slide is the IoT Audit Solution Framework. It's essentially a 5-step process. The first being the target outcome. This is the purpose. This is why you're doing your IoT deployment. And the first part of that is to work through, and the IoT audit has the tools so you can conceive of exactly what it is you want to do. Then, to get the team on board, they have to believe you're going to be successful if you're really going to achieve your goals. You do this by documenting exactly what it is you want to do and make sure you understand exactly why everybody's participating in the project. You're going to share it both internally and externally, potentially with your suppliers and customers. The next step is baseline and expectations. Here we understand, once we know where you're going, where you are today, and use the backtrack tools that we'll talk a lot about in session 2 of this video series, but also has a lot of material in the IoT coursework. You're going to involve the right people. You're going to understand and start to identify the skills, funds, and the expectations on time frame, along with the tools you need. Next, you'll build your strategy map and identify your key metrics. Then, on paper, you'll plan the tasks out for how to deploy your IoT solution. And lastly, you're going to optimize your business by taking the information you've retrieved from your IoT deployment, combined with your other business data, to realize those key performance metrics we identified in the strategy and metrics section. So you can see it's a solid framework. It's been used many times, and it's predicated on some best-of-breed business practices from other leading thinkers in the business world. Now, this is a deeper drill down of the previous slide. You can see that we have represented here in red the target outcome, and then, of course, green is the baseline and expectations, the purple is the strategy and metrics, the blue is the tasks, and the orange is the optimization. And I'm not going to detail too much here, as we have the material in the IoT coursework book, but you can see here at each of the phases, it's essentially a stage gate type of process where in your target outcome, you'll have your vision and objectives. Then you're going to have your kind of go, no-go once you go through your baseline and expectations. It might turn out that there's some processing improvements and other things you can do besides an IoT deployment. They may actually give you some of the outputs you desire. But as you move forward, then you can create your IoT strategy map. You can document your IoT project plan on paper, and you can articulate your business optimization objectives in the last phase. When you use the IoT audit, it's going to drive a successful plan for you. When you use the tools, you'll create the following: a written business performance optimization target outcomes with your key performance metrics, a complete baseline of your IoT applications, your status, where you are today, the technology requirements, your skills and your readiness, and understanding the expectations of all the parties involved in your IoT deployment, both internal and external. This is a very key step because people who aren't on board can definitely derail your IoT deployment. You'll create your IoT strategy map. What's the process, the resources, and timeline for rolling out your IoT deployment? You'll have the task list for all the actions and accountabilities. And lastly, you'll create your business performance optimization action plan. This is a quick slide on the team's background who created the IoT audit. Our team is really well qualified to help our customers with the IoT audit project, with over 70 combined years of experience in networking, hardware, sensor design, wireless systems, application software, and data sciences. We've had senior roles in hardware and software engineering, project management, operations, marketing, sales, services, customer support, and general management. Over the last 6 years, we've had experience with ultra-low power IoT sensor design and wireless protocols. And our partners include sensor manufacturers, M2M gateway vendors, cellular providers, cloud providers, and application software providers. So we designed the IoT audit solution to be the best tool in the industry. We collected and analyzed data from key industry research firms. We had extensive discussions with end user customers. We summarize the data from industry forums and IoT symposiums. And we've had quite a few discussions with many of the best-of-class IoT solutions vendors, sensor device manufacturers, network gateway vendors, network operators, cloud services providers, and application software vendors. And then we've also utilized the best in practice strategic planning and operational effectiveness frameworks from people like Kaplan, Covey, and others. And lastly, we've trialed the IoT audit with clients to successfully implement their business optimizations using a high return on investment IoT implementation. So what results can you expect if you use the IoT Audit Toolkit? Well, first you're going to get an understanding of all the Internet of Things components. Then you're going to create your target outcomes, your goals, using your corporate key performance indicators, both your lagging metrics and your leading metrics. You're going to baseline your corporate IoT situation using the IoT Maturity Toolset. You're going to identify all IoT stakeholder expectations. You're then going to create your strategy map with your target metrics. You're going to identify the IoT implementation task set. And lastly, you're going to list and quantify the business performance optimizations that will be driven by a successful IoT implementation. You can see here that the IoT audit gives you all the tools you need to create a sound business case for a successful IoT implementation. Now, there are some common mistakes people make when they're trying to put an IoT deployment together. The number one is no clear target outcome agreed to by the team. This is obviously the issue. If everybody's pulling on different oars, the boat's going to go a different direction. So you need to get everybody on board early. Jumping into implementation before planning. The siren song of all of the different sensors and network and M2M wireless connectivity and cloud software. It's easy to fall down the rabbit hole of wanting to play with the technology before you really understand what it is you want to do. Number 3 is not collecting important baseline information to understand exactly where you're at today in your maturity assessment. Number 4 is incorrectly assessing the degree of difficulty, how much it's going to cost, how long is it going to take, and the personnel skills required for IoT success. Number 5 is not understanding the expectations of all the stakeholders. Not everybody is rooting for you to be successful here. You need to identify the folks that are on your side, the folks that may be detractors, and those that might be surprised by what you're doing. You need to think that through ahead of time. Number 6 is an incomplete project plan with no single point of accountabilities. And lastly, not tying your IoT implementation to your key performance indicators that you're looking to improve, which will in turn, unfortunately, leads to lackluster business performance optimization if you don't link those together successfully. So what's coming up in the next video session? Well, as you can see from the mind map here, we're going to do the top 3 items here. We're going to dive into how to document your target outcome, how to baseline your situation and do your maturity assessment, and identify the expectations of all those involved in your IoT deployments. Once we've walked through all that, the third video is going to talk about how to create your strategy map, document your IoT deployment tasks, and understand how you're going to measure value. I think you'll find these sessions to be as detailed and high value as this session was, and I hope you join us for the second video. So what should you do next? I'd like you to review this presentation and video again with the mindset of, how does this apply specifically to my company's situation? As you're going through this, I'm sure you had some insights into the applicability of the IoT Audit Toolkit, but I think it would pay dividends if you went back and reviewed again the material with a context of that question of, how does it apply to me? Then I'd ask you to consider and write down your IoT target outcomes. And best to document as following: I want to improve the following key performance indicator, or insert what you want to improve, by, insert the percent or monetary increase, by a certain time frame. Documenting your target outcomes this way will start to give you a feel for where you'll be able to really leverage IoT implementations. Next, go ahead and enter your name and email in the pop-up window to receive the next free IoT audit video we talked a little bit about in the previous slide. And then join me for watching IoT audit video number 2, target outcome, baselining techniques, and expectations identification. I hope you enjoyed the material today. I'm looking forward to joining you in video 2. Look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.